Ladies and gentlemen, we had a passing of a soccer icon, so to speak, that adopted St. Louis as his home. He married a St. Louis gal, and he was quite the coach. And my buddy here, Terry Michler, kind of started with him as his chauffeur slash partner with the old Kansas City Spurs. And we're going to go through the history of all that and see the evolution of soccer with the Pop around. And this is a guy, he's kind of always known him. For a long time, I had no idea you were a friend of his, and you were like a best bud. So I'd like to introduce you as Dragan Don Popovic's friend, Terry Michler.
Glad you got Dragan in there. That's his formal first name.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was when I was. I think I might have found one, one of those St. Louis Stars programs. I certainly didn't have the money to buy one, but I was too good to steal. Is that to talk about all those players? I mean, if I would have read books as much as I read that one program, I would have been a scholar of sorts. But it was really something. And we talked about it the other day. He said, no, he started with Kansas City. I said, no.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and because I remember him, and it was his friend, and also a player under him that was coached by him, David Bursick, that I asked him about, because he was on the Stars like in '67, the first year, and I kind of remember the guy going down the sidelines, juggling the ball off his thighs and stuff and going into goal, but I don't know. Did you ever see him do that?
Oh, yeah. Pops was a showman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be Pops to a T. Pops was a guy that everybody got to know. There's no doubt that if you met Pops, you knew him because that was just his personality. He never left a room that people didn't know he was there. And people had different opinions of him for lots of reasons, but I think the primary reasons was he was really a proud man and believed in what he believed in, and wanted to promote what he thought was right. And sometimes when you do that, you cross paths with people, and he would always hold his ground. He would stand his ground. So he wasn't adverse to confrontation as long as he thought he was right. An interesting story. I mean, when we were together in Kansas City, we had an international team. I was one of two Americans that were on the team. The other one, Mike Tucker, also from St. Louis and from Rockhurst College at the time. We were the two local guys that they brought along for publicity and promotion, I guess. But we had an interesting international cast of characters. We were coached by a Hungarian, and all of the players, and I think this was probably the undoing of it all, lived together in the same apartment complex. And they had one situation after another that developed. And it ended up where the whole thing ended up in court. Got to be a legal issue. And I don't know the full story behind it, but I know Pops was pretty much right there where it was all happening because that's the way he was. So yeah, it ended up having to go to court, and something about the way the coach got along with the players got along with the coach, but more off the field than on the field for sure. And when they're living that close together, and you're all coming in from a foreign country, and you've all got your own backgrounds about it, that can be a kind of an explosive situation once it gets out of control. And apparently, that's what happened. So it
Wow.
all got resolved, but in the process, and I don't know that this had anything to do with it, but Pops was with Kansas City, and then all of a sudden he was with St. Louis. So he St. Louis went back to St. Louis.
Yeah, yeah. How about Willie Roy? Was he a part of the gang?
So here's the deal about with the Spurs, as they were known. They were first the Chicago Spurs. That's where
Uh,
they. And in 1968, they came to Kansas City as part of the NASL, which was having an introductory experimental league situation where European teams, mostly, it's particularly or specifically the English teams and Scottish teams and Irish teams, would come over and there'd be a host city for them. Like, for instance, Kansas City, we had Wolverhampton. That was our team from England, Wolverhampton.
wow.
I think St. Louis might have had Aberdeen. I'm not sure who St. Louis had, but everybody had a team, and then the NASL played off of that. It was the first introductory part of the season. Was we had these European teams, and then we had our local teams. So Willie Roy was part of the 1968 Kansas City team, and then and that was a successful team. But that was a time too where the league, the NASL, had I think multiple teams, double-digit teams, maybe 15 or more teams in it. And after that year, the money seems to have run out and been misappropriated. And the league in 1969, when I was a part of it, was down to 5 teams.
Wow.
It was Kansas City, Atlanta, Baltimore, and Dallas. Those were the 5 teams in the league in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of on a respirator then. So
Oh man,
it
yeah.
was gone then, and Pops was still around, but we still had a really good team. I mean, like I said, I was one of 2 Americans, so we were all international. They were all internationals, mostly all European and Latin American, and we were champions of the NASL in 1969. So we had a good team.
Yeah. You know, you can't overstate having a good bench.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Uh,
Was that a segue for something? I'm not sure where you were going with that.
well, because Terry Michler and that other guy kind of
Oh,
rode the bench a lot.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, Kevin? That was a tremendous learning experience. That was probably the single most important part of my soccer career. One of the most important parts of my soccer career was to have that exposure. And you're right, I didn't get game time. And I actually, the truth was, but it was a short season because it only ran like from late spring into the summer. And I got mono about midway into the summer. So I was inactive for a couple of weeks. You know, when you get mono, it knocks you down for a while. Matter of fact, we had a team picture taken. Anybody ever sees a team picture? The uniform was red, but that was in the period of time when I was not around because I was dealing with mono. I did find out and show up for the picture, but I didn't have a uniform. So I'm the guy in the white jersey, and everybody else is in a red jersey. So that for anybody who's interested, that explains that. But so no, it was a great experience. Practicing with those guys every single day. Oh, it was incredible. And
Wow.
association with Pops really developed during that period of time because I was his driver. I mean, Pops stayed in a hotel in Midtown Kansas City, and I was going to school up there, and I had bought a car, so I was his transportation to practice. We practiced at Parks College, which was in Parksville, Missouri, about 30 minutes from downtown Kansas City. So I'd pick him up and I'd drive him to practice every day and back. And during the day when we weren't practicing or before the season started, he and I would do clinics in the local schools and different community events. And the two of us would take some soccer balls and go demonstrate to a bunch of kids. And Pops had loved it because he got to show off and do his thing with them. And he was always into always through his whole career, with Lou Fusz and everybody else. He was always about the kids and about showing and putting on a good performance and showing the kids what the game could be like, how you could play it, but mostly how you could have fun with it. He really enjoyed doing those clinics. I mean, that brought a smile to his face when he did those clinics.
Wow. Well, you learned Spanish along the way somewhere, but how about any Slavic?
I'm laughing because I learned Spanish somewhere along the way. When I was a junior in high school, I was supposed to sign up for chemistry, and I had a bad experience with biology, and so I wasn't too keen on taking chemistry, and I'd taken 2 years of Latin, so I sidestepped chemistry and took Spanish. My whole Spanish career, I ended up in college getting a degree, not a degree, but I got a degree in education, but I had enough credits to teach Spanish. So I taught Spanish for most of my career at CBC, wow. But it was through sidestepping chemistry that I got into Spanish. And I had 2 years, which really helped get me started with Spanish.
Yeah, man. And it is, I'm telling you, man, the old Groucho Marx used to have that TV program, and the birds come down. Yeah, the magic word is that there you go when you talked about learning and starting to enjoy by watching it on the bench and having that practice where hey man, you got to practice. And this is how you practice. And this is why you practice. For that game, man, is that game is an art and science of it all. And you have always been, anybody that knew you back in the day, you had a relationship with the ball. I mean, that ball kind of like, was the shoestring tied on the ball? What's going on? And doing that and how you moved with the ball. You performed when you gave, the time to do the demo. It was, man, you said, God, I wish I could be that good, And you must have developed that with that European style of being a showman and doing it right in the right time in the right way.
I'll tell you what, at that point in my career, that certainly enhanced all that I had before that. And I was lucky growing up, I got to play for Dave Berwin, which anybody that ever did that is thankful and appreciative, because there was no one better to play for when we were growing up than Dave, because he was a fundamentalist. I mean, he really believed in he had a Dutch mentality about him. Keep the game simple, execute the way you're supposed to, but keep the game simple. You don't have to be spectacular, but what you have to do, you better do it right. So, yeah, that was always important. And I appreciate the comment that you said there, but the highlight, like I said, was practicing every day with the Spurs, who were fully international professional people. It was way higher than the level I was at. There's no doubt about that. But it gave me something every day to try to get closer to. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And playing on the field with them every day, you get to see it, live it, experience it. Get embarrassed by it and everything else. But but it's a learning opportunity. So right. I took full advantage of that. That's for sure.
I mean, they even wear their sweatpants and suit and their uniform, tie their shoes a whole lot different than we.
Kevin, you nail right on the head. Not too many people pay a lot of attention to that, but there's so much different about them in terms of their behaviors, their appearances, just even the smallest details. And you just did a great job identifying that. And I think it's just part of their upbringing in the game, how they were brought up in the game, because they have a professional soccer environment and an experience that we don't have. We play a lot of soccer, but we don't have a lot of professionalism about our soccer. And I'm not saying that to be demeaning or derogatory, just matter of fact. But they grew up with that. When I go to Holland on the Dutch trips and I see the Ajax youth practice, kids 10 years old and whatever, they're already in that mold. They're wearing the same training clothes that the first team wears. There's an expectation and a behavior to follow along. It's modeled for you right in front of you, and you can't miss it. So the expectation is you better fall in line with it, or somebody else will be glad to do it. So yeah, it's a big point. It's a little big point. That carries over into your mentality and how you approach the game and how you play. It's real simple.
Sometimes the halftime was the best part of the game. Is that when the substitutes would stay out with the ball, and they would ping. Oh, the ball, like it never touched the ground with their, everything in execution way and everything, and every pass was to the right. And I can't express enough of how I learned it from you is that there's a lot of stuff you got to do before you run to that ball and start dribbling it.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Kevin, I don't want to interrupt, but this is the last off-the-topic subject we're going to talk about because we're supposed to be talking about Pops.
Right.
That's, the last comment here on the last story. About that was always a time when, the guys on the bench could go out and have a little fun and be a little showman and whatnot in front of the crowd.
Exactly.
And played in a municipal stadium in Kansas City, which was like the home of the professional baseball team and stuff. So, and we didn't have huge crowds, but back in those days, we had probably attendances that were leading the league. Maybe it was only 5,000 or 6,000, but it was more than anybody else was getting. So yeah, that was kind of special to be able to do that. And even today, like you say, those guys that get out there at halftime, that's their time to show, and they don't take it lightly, and they don't miss the opportunity. They take advantage of it. Let's get back on Pops.
Yeah, and lastly, how the league and the Slavic way of bringing just a colored jersey with those big numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, that was some sharp stuff, man.
When George Mihalovic came over to us and started the White Star Club, and he was all about that. I mean, everything about him was that Eastern European approach, right? And White Star, he I can tell you this for a fact that I was when White Star would play a game in the locker room, George would show up with a big suitcase, and he'd have all the uniforms pressed and folded and cleaned in the suitcase, and would hand them out. And the uniform would be solid color. It'd be like jersey, shorts, socks would all be the same color. But he had 5 or 6 different colors. Like he'd have green, red, blue, black, whatever. And they'd have a white star on it and a big number. It was so classy. It was unbelievably classy.
Yeah.
She's not right about that. Yeah.
And that's anytime I went out there past Lou Fusz, it was always like, man, that's a gentleman's farm right there, baby. And then you would see the development happening all the time. Wow, And he was so gracious of allowing you because of the rain and this and that, or scheduling, he would allow you on short notice to come on out and play before all his teams would come out.
Yeah, no, Pops was very, very generous person, just incredibly generous. What was my point? So like my association with Pops goes way back to 1969, and I think there's lots of people in St. Louis through Lou Fusz and through the professional indoor game that had association with Pops, got to know him and everything else. But I knew Pops when he was a player. Not too many people locally would know him as a player because most of what they know about him here is as a coach and as an organizer of the Lou Fusz program. And what a lot of people probably don't know, and Pops told me this on a number of occasions, that when he was growing up, his main sport that he had really excelled in, he was a national level ping pong player.
Wow.
How about that? And I'm pretty sure he was into gymnastics also. But his claim to fame before soccer, he got started in soccer a little bit late, he said. But he was a ping pong player of a high regard. And you could see it. I mean, his style of play, boy, he was so quick. I remember with the first year we had a team in Kansas City. They had an exhibition game that played Santos. And Santos was the team of Pelé.
Yeah.
And Pops was normally a midfielder, but he was so lightning quick that in that game they had him mark Pelé, and he did an incredibly good job, against Pelé in that game because he had the ability to keep up with him from a quickness point of view. And Pops was a very, very smart player, skillful. He had the whole package, and so he could anticipate how the game might be going and where it needed to be, but then he was quick enough to always counter whatever was going on. So that's another fact that probably little known about Pops is that he had his day of claim to fame where he got to mark Pelé in an exhibition game.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in St. Louis, it was Casey Frankowitz that had that he scored more goals and stuff than the guy.
Wow.
Yeah, but Iron Mike Galician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then plus you threw Eddie Clear and Pele. He had a tough time, but he still scored.
That first Stars team was really an impressive team. You go through that litany of that roster. Boy, there were some good players there.
Oh,
really.
Man, yeah.
Yeah. We were really lucky there.
Yeah. And so there you have it, that's how he goes. And how so you spoke it well, is that you can change positions when you're older, and you can change sports. It's not just I've only played one game, one position, and the Pops comes, and that brings that competitive spirit, because I don't really know the guy from nobody, and everybody said, hey, he was a very serious-minded man. And
David did a great job talking about Pops in his interview with you, and I read one of the comments on Facebook from I think Musenfector said it. He said I played for Pops with the New York Arrows team, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing what he said. He goes, "That was a great team, and I wasn't up to that level, but Pops was good enough to trade." Pops told me, he said, "You're good enough to play in this league," and he worked out a trade for him so that he could get on a team that he could play. Wow. Pops always had an eye for talent. He always knew talent, and David said he wasn't the greatest tactician, but you know what? When you have the right players, the most important thing for the coach to do is just kind of stay out of the way. Just if you trust the players, and if you've got the right players, the players you want, and you got them for the reason that you want, why would you want to change them? They already showed you what they can do. You've already committed to that's what you want, so just go let them do it. Stay the heck out of the way. And Pops was incredibly good about identifying that high level talent, and he was enough of a salesman that he could get those people to buy into him, and they'd want to play for him, and he was successful. He was successful. Yeah.
My understanding is that it was up in Canada, and Denny Vanager went up there and played. And like the first game that he played, he scored on a header, and they all ran up to him and jumped on him and kissed him and stuff. And he went, hey, I don't know about all this. And Pops told him, that's just the European way, It doesn't mean...
Yeah, no, that's 100% the European way.
Yeah. But And also it comes where he was at the Rochester, and then with the era. You talk about a fusion of international blood, but it's one game. It's the world's game, and you play it accordingly.
Absolutely. There's a book out about the Rochester Lancers and their franchise that they had up there, and it's a really detailed book. I mean, it covers all the bases that Rochester went through, and so much of the book. Once Pops enters into the scene, the whole book changes from Rochester to Pops. I mean, he was the main
Wow.
character. Yeah, in a big chunk of the book, it was all about Pops, and who he brought in, how he managed to manage games, how he could win games, how he could change things around and stuff. But Pops was always a visionary. Like the Lou Fusz complex that they have today. Pops was. I remember meeting with Pops, and this was in the early 2000s. It might have been like right after the year 2000, 2001 or two. And he was practicing with his Lou Fusz team, and they were practicing at the Mullah Temple Field. Have you ever heard of a Mullah Temple Field?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's a far distant cry from what Lou Fusz Complex is today. It was just a field that he found somewhere. Somebody found farm, and it was just a field. That's all it was. And he was practicing there. And I met with him on occasions when he moved from there to Missouri Bottoms. He had a field complex, not a complex, just a number of fields at Missouri Bottom. But Pop, I said he was a visionary. Pop's always had a notebook, a shoulder bag that he always carried, and he had drawings and diagrams of what he wanted his complex to be. He was never without a thought. I mean, and the thought was always to build something that would be special, that would accommodate a lot of players and teams, and would be lasting, and would benefit a whole lot of people. Basically, it would benefit the whole community. So that was down at the Missouri Bottoms, which was in a floodplain, and he was right across from a sod farm. And part of his plan was to negotiate a deal with the sod farm and add extra fields. Then in the meantime, he got onto this Creve Coeur field, that complex that he's got, and started building and developing that. And even there, he had visions to continue to build more in that area and to put all kinds of buildings to house different activities and whatnot. I mean, like I said, he was a visionary. There was so much to Pops that most people really don't realize.
No, no, not at all. Man, I tell you, it was really something where you had Jim Pollahan and you had Al Trost and Bobby O'Leary, and I might have missed some other guys, but they played under Pops when they won the indoor championships.
Oh yeah. Well, Don Draghi played with him at
Yeah,
Rochester, and
there you go.
Jimmy Roth played with him at
That's
Rochester.
right.
I think Pollahan played with him at Rochester.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Pops loved those guys. He loved the St. Louis guy.
yeah.
And he
So
loved them, their fight and their competitiveness. That's what he loved about them.
so we got it where you were. Did you have a Volkswagen at the time up in Kansas City?
No, I actually had a Pontiac Firebird,
Woo, man!
1999 Pontiac Firebird. Ran
Damn.
a terrible car, but
Yeah,
it ran like a crud. Had no room, but it looked good. It looked
yeah,
good.
it did. So it wasn't like you guys were riding around talking tactics and stuff. It was more like, hey, watch what I do and follow this way and that way.
No, well, not quite, because Pops was always really good because I spent so much time with him, in travel and stuff, and I was practicing with him every day, and he saw where I was and where they were, and he kept trying to do all he could to help me in little areas that could get me closer. So I really, really valued that, and talking to Pops in later years, whenever he'd introduce me to somebody, I'd have to stop and say, Pops, who the hell are you talking about? He's talking about me, but in glowing terms. And it's like, let's get real here.
Yeah.
But again, that's just the way he was. I mean, he liked to always deflect himself to someone else.
What was the story about the gymnasium with the basketball backboard? And is there a story?
Well, when we would do a lot of these clinics, they'd be in the gyms.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we would do, part of what we would do would be try to score baskets with a soccer ball without using our hands. We either volley or head or whatever. We'd start somewhere like at the free throw line and try and drop the ball and kick it to where lift it to where it would land into the net. We go to half court or whatever, or we'd do heading back and forth from half court and try to finish off with a headed basket and stuff like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, oh man, there it was. That's the show.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was.
Now, did he wear his sambas or these untied?
No, you know what? Though he had the smallest feet. I think he must have had about a size 4.5 shoe or something. He just jammed them in there. But his feet were quick. They were lightning quick, and his touch was immaculate. Oh boy, yeah. He was at a different level as a player, and he really was. One of the highlights of dealing with Pops was being invited into his basement.
How so?
Oh my God, his basement is an international world-class soccer museum. There's not an inch on his wall that isn't taken up by some picture that he could tell you story after story about. Pops coached an international charity all-star game of the highest level international players. I mean, people here, know Pops, but that's only a small part of the people that know Pops. Pops is probably one of the more known people through the whole range of soccer that you wouldn't maybe suspect. But boy, his Rolodex. If you ever got a chance to look at his Rolodex or talk to him about somebody, he could probably pull them up in his Rolodex and call them, and they would take the call from him. That's how popular he was.
Wow.
Hardly who they were or where they were. They'd take a call from him. He was that popular.
Well, when he was at the Arrows and then he went over to the San Diego Sockers, he brought some incredible type of style of soccer and players there.
Well, it's like what I said before. He knew talent. I mean, he knew what he needed to win with, and he knew who they were and where they were. And he was a good enough salesman that he could get them. He really could get them. Speaking of Pops as a salesman, you got to tell this story. There was a period of time in his career where I think he was out of soccer, and he got into real estate. He was selling real estate. And one of his business friends, or another Serbian, Milan Mandaric, was the big time businessman from his country. And Milan owned a number of soccer clubs in the U.S., San Jose Earthquakes, for instance, but also in England, he owned Leicester City, Portsmouth, I think Nottingham Forest. He owned a couple in England as well. But he was also a huge, successful businessman in the computer world, and I think he was in the real estate. One day, Pops pulls out his black bag, and he shows me this canceled check. And the checks were $1.2 million. Get a couple of these every year, and you're doing okay. I said, yeah. So he was quite the salesman. There's no doubt about that.
Man.
Proof of it. I can't tell you how many times he showed me a check. I said, Pops, I've already seen it. I know the story. Oh, good. He was such a great guy. he would be insulted if he wouldn't take up his request to go to his invitation to go to lunch with him. You walk into Duffy's and they go, "Okay, Pops, how you doing?" He didn't even need to give an order. He was so well known there and frequented so often that they just knew what Pops. He always liked soup, liked it hot, you know. He was a good guy. He was really a good guy.
Was that the place in Clayton or Kirkwood or something, or Webster Groves?
Like somewhere like Woods Mill and something.
Okay.
Maybe Clayton Road. I think it's on Clayton Road.
It's called Duffy's.
Yeah, Duffy's. There's another one on Clayton Road by the old CBC in that shopping center. At least it used to be. But this one's out in West County.
All right. Because, man, you got to hold court, man. You got to have a place to go.
Yeah, no kidding. That was his. It was his office, basically.
So, as you go with the soccer and you see that, the enjoyment of life is following him under some really terrible freedom circumstances. Yugoslavia wasn't your sweet home type of thing. Did he ever chat with you about the politics of that area?
Oh, yeah, just to kind of give you a little insight into that situation. I mentioned that Milan Mandaric, okay? And I looked him up a little bit prior to this interview because I wanted to get some background. And Milan was a guy that at age 21 took over his father's trade business. And by age 26, he had raised that business level up to being one of the most successful in the country. And at that time, Yugoslavia, where they lived, was a communist country. And there was a lot of resentment and mistrust of anybody that was successful in business and was generating a lot of money. And the government would ultimately come in and take over. So that's when Milan left the country to protect he actually had to give up all of his business assets when he left the country. But he was able to leave. And then he came to the States and started from scratch in the States in a couple of different industries, mostly the computer industry, and brought himself back up to the level that he was, where he could buy and sell professional soccer clubs, right? So Pops, that's the environment that Pops grew up in. So yeah, it was tough. And he got out at 17. He turned professional and played on the Red Star team of Belgrade, which in world soccer back in the day, Red Star was a highly respected club. I mean, it was a quality team. And then he moved on to Hajduk Split, where he was a captain of the team. Then he came to the States.
Wow.
So Pops has a reputation, here, there, and everywhere. And he's guys that's been there and done it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then, and I think David Bursick did a great job yesterday in the interview. I heard it, where he said, I think the most satisfying thing that Pops got out of all his interactions was working with the kids. And that's a powerful statement when you realize where all he has been and where all he could have been, to say that. And I agree with him. I think that every time I saw Pops, after we said hi and whatnot, he'd tell me how many teams he's got in his club. And he was always interested and happy and satisfied to let me know that the club was really growing and that he was able to bring more kids into the club and give more of them a chance to have that experience. That really meant a lot to him. It really did.
Man. I mean, it is quite something when you're out there in that whole area. I mean, almost every inch is filled with kids playing soccer.
Yeah. Yeah.
With smiles on their face.
And David said it well yesterday. I think Pop started Lou Fusz with two teams, the two teams that the two Fusz boys were on. And now we're going to over probably 200 or more teams for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's directly responsible for that because, like I said, go back to the days where where he was practicing at Mula Temple practice field, where he went to Missouri Bottoms and created a couple fields there, and then came out to Creve Coeur and got that going. But he was always a visionary. I mean, he was always looking forward and always had a plan. Like I said, in his shoulder bag, he always had diagrams and, hand drawn. He did them himself, how he wanted things to be. And it's just amazing. Just amazing.
Well, you got the Irish guy from St. Louis, STL Shirko and Hatco. He's got a basement with Elvis Presley that does the Degabaxi. And then you got the Pops with soccer worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got your buddy Whale here at Boom Productions in the downtown Holly Hills.
Yeah, who could ask for more, right?
Oh, well, there you go. Well, it's coming up to that time. And, the essence of what you brought just lays it out there clear, as simple as everything is to be able to have that imagination, that enthusiasm, that drive for a vision and stick to it with discipline and so forth and go for it. But enjoy yourself every step of the way.
I think Pops used to have a Friday night session where he would lead it. I mean, he would get whatever number of kids would come out to it, and he would do all the demonstration. I mean, he loved a crowd because he wanted to entertain them. He was so good and so talented, and he just really had a way with it, with the way he handled himself. So that was a Friday night activity that he did for quite a while at Lou Fusz, for Lou Fusz players.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he was true and true. I mean, it was exactly what you'd want him in terms of passion and generosity. And I mean, he was good, and he had a lot of contacts, and he was a guy that could make a lot of things happen. But he was also about making a good situation for a lot of other people, especially the young kids. He was all about helping those young kids.
Yeah. Well, it comes up at Inset now, is to be able to say, hey, Terry, whatever you want to say to who you ever want to say it to for as long as you want to say it for. Close this out.
Well, now that we're talking about our buddy Pops, I really feel fortunate for over the years. I mean, 1969 is a long, long time ago. And it's really easy to just let things go afterwards and say, oh, yeah, just that was a memory, blah, blah, blah. But I feel lucky because I was able to stay in touch with Pops till this very day. It wasn't too long ago he came to visit me in this facility that I'm in right now and spend a little time with me. Pops was an interesting guy. Every time I'd go to visit with him at his house and whatnot, he'd always have to show me the latest stuff that he did for Connie. Connie, the love of his life was Connie. Always entered into a conversation, whether it was a new kitchen or whatever it was that Connie needed. Connie would always get. And his favorite dog, Bruno, he always used to love to let me know about Bruno, how Bruno was doing. And Bruno passed a few years ago, but Pops was just loyal that way. He had a lot of different sides to him. I remember one time years ago, he was sick. Poor guy spent 44 days in the hospital, and I'd go visit him, and he didn't look like himself at all. I mean, he was really fighting a lot of different conditions then, but he had a lot of good support, because he always affected people in good ways, and people always cared a lot for him, and he got through it, and he was good to the very end. I mean, he was good through and through. And so my last comments would be, I'm just glad that I had an association with him and a friendship, and got to enjoy and experience him, and just see how well he did when he made the transition to come here and stay, as an outsider. and how well he was adapted, and what an influence, what an impact he made on the community. And just to read the comments that people are making on his behalf now, that a lot of postings on Facebook and stuff, and it's just good. I mean, people have nothing but good things to say about him. So I'm just happy to have had that association with him over the years.
Yeah. It's one thing, being on the sideline, looking at his life, the history of it, not knowing him at all, but just feeling it from where his presence. But man, you and David to really give us the insight of the man on the field. That's quite something. And you guys don't you admire him, but you call him a friend, and he calls you guys friends. So that's
The thing about Pops. I mean, when you look at if you look at his paper trail, where he's been, what he's done, he never had any education. You know, he turned professional soccer player at age 17. He came to this country in his early 20s. His whole life revolved around being a professional athlete. But yet, he can generate plans and ideas and get sponsors, get money, and put that to good use. And look at this Lou Fusz complex now. I mean, the basis of that, Pops had a big hand in that, envisioning it and developing it, and keep improving it and stuff. And go back again, like I said, go back to the Moolah Shrine practice field, to the Missouri Bottoms practice field, to where they are now. All that was Pops. He was never ever satisfied where he was, because he always had a vision of doing more and being in a different place. So yeah, I mean, full credit to him. Like I said, he did stuff that business people do without having any business background.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
Kevin, thanks for letting me have the opportunity to talk about Pops.
You're welcome. Yes, and I pass on our condolences to Connie and all his family and friends, wherever they're at. Yeah. All right, Terry. So you are the patient. I mean, the best patient out there at the Gatesworth Extended Care. Hope to become a sponsor of Wales Certified someday. But you're always nice. When I walk in there to visit you, you're going to see Terry. Yeah, he's a good old boy, So
yeah,
hats off to you, man.
Yeah, it's a nice community.
Yeah.
Can I close this out for you, Kevin?
Please.
In the words of our infamous Jack Buck, thanks for your time this time. Till next time, it's been a fine time. That's all, Kevin.
That's right. All right, friend. Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.